I will get us started. So welcome to Agility Lab. My name is Morten Elvang. And in Agility Lab, we are running a series where we are inviting people from the Danish community at the moment who have had some history and influence in how Agile has been developing and progressing. We call it the state of Agile. And Mikkel, we don't actually know each other. This was the first time we met, but I have seen your name so many times, and Liza recommended that we just had to invite you for this series. So it's a real pleasure to have you with us this evening, and I really look forward to hear how you see the state of Agile. Please.
Thank you, and I appreciate being invited. Honored to be here. We'll start by sharing my screen. I'll start by sharing the right screen. Is that this one? It's probably this one. It looks right to you guys, right?
It looks good.
Good. Okay. So I've put together a small presentation here. And when I was asked to talk about the state of Agile, to me, I felt I need to start with the past. Where did we come from, and then where are we today? And then I will do some speculation on where might we be going in the future. At the end, we will have at least half an hour available for discussion. I'm probably going to say a lot of things that you will disagree with. That's where the fun starts, I think. So just a little bit about myself. I've been in software development since '95. Started as a programmer in web development back when you wrote HTML by hand, and JavaScript was not really a thing back then. About 2005, I started learning about this thing called Agile, and started reading about it and preaching about it. Scrum, Lean, Kanban, all of these things. And started a couple of teams up soon after 2005 in the company I was working on at the moment as a developer and Scrum Master and so on. Around 2010, I transitioned from being a hands-on developer myself to being Scrum Master and Agile coach only. And in 2013, I became a professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org. And all of this time, I've been sort of in consulting positions. So up until 2017, where I left consulting to become an in-house Agile coach. I've been now in 4 different companies, and I'm never going to go back to consulting again. But that's a story for another time. So that's enough about me. But those years have sort of formed my perception of the history that's behind us, and it led me to sort of define what I see as some significant eras of software development. So there was the time before 1995. There was 95 to around 2005. Then from around 2005 to 2010, 2015. Then from 2015 to 2020, then something happened in 2020, and up until today, that's sort of the next era. And then there's the future, right? And is the future going to be vastly different from the period from 2020 to today? We'll see. So I'll quickly walk through sort of the past, and then I'll spend most of the time speculating about the future. And if you have questions or comments along the way, please just unmute and ask. So let's start in the past. Before 1995, the situation was that the need for software was growing. There was a massive need for software developers around the world, but software development as a profession was still very young and immature. And if you've read or listened to Uncle Bob, Robert C. Martin, he will say that we are still in this very young state where it's very immature. It's not comparable to other professions out there. The processes that we were using back then, they were borrowed from construction work and physical product development. So project management methodologies that were working in other kinds of businesses, they were being borrowed into software development. And it led to a lot of frustration, especially the kind of pass the ball processes that we lived with. So how did we work? Well, most organizations were split into professional silos. Like you had the project management department, the software development department, testing department, operations, and so on. And every project was waterfall. Right? You had a very strict process where you specified what to build first, spent a lot of time on that. And then you went and built it, and eventually you tested it, and hopefully you got to fix all the defects before going live. So normally you would have like a big bang launch of the product, and then a shorter or longer period of hypercare, and then you were done with it. So it looked sort of like this, where the ball is with executive management, and then they sort of pass the ball along between the different departments in the organization. And it took a long time to go all the way through the set of departments. So when the ball got to development, we would normally figure out that the requirements that they'd come up with, they were no longer valid. Maybe it took a year to go from the decision to development, and the requirements stated what they needed a year ago, and now we're a year later, and we're going to spend a year building this thing. So we know already now that we're building the wrong thing. So that was some of the frustration that was building up, and when we found issues here, we had to solve them here. We didn't sort of pass the ball backwards. It was very sequential. So that was in the good old days before I became a developer. Then there was the period that sort of crossed the boundary of year 2000. We had the dot-com bubble that burst. And one of the sort of findings that came out of that was we can't just build our expectations on companies just by a company saying we are going to do this thing, invest in us, right? We needed to see results. We needed to see early and frequent deliveries of values. And this is where Scrum, Agile, Crystal, all kinds of frameworks started showing up, that all were sort of addressing both the frustration with the annoying projects that we were running, but also this thing about getting to value sooner in a project. And software development departments, they were definitely paying attention, but not the rest of the organizations. So it was not a lot of change that happened sort of on the organizational levels, most places, but there were a lot of experimentation going on with Scrum and other frameworks, but mainly inside the software development department, right? So even though we were still like organized into these silos, now we started experimenting with things, not in the overall processes, right? But when we got to development, now we started running in small cycles and produced stuff before passing it on to the user acceptance testing and finally go live of the product. So the overall process still looked the same, but now we were doing something special inside software development. And it did bring some value, right? In general, people who were in this silo, they were happy with this. It felt much more productive. It felt useful. We got some good stuff out of it. Then from 2005 and up until 2010-15, there was more and more attention on these agile methods. And not a lot of people had a lot of knowledge about Agile or Scrum, and not a lot of people had a lot of experience with it. We had some experiments and some small scale stuff going on. And oh yeah, there was this project where we were actually doing the development part of a waterfall project in an iterative manner. This was fun. This was amazing. Let's try that out some more. So adopting these agile methods, it required some help. And the Scrum Master role was like the key driver of getting people to understand what is agile all about. People needed to be upgraded, right? People needed to start thinking in terms of bringing multiple different skill sets together into a team. They needed to start thinking in something that brings value in a couple of weeks instead of in a couple of years. So it was a major change, and the Scrum Masters who were good at this, they were sort of driving this cultural shift. And management consulting companies, they started getting their eyes open to this agile world. They started seeing an opportunity to do something else and make a difference, to distinguish themselves in this landscape of management consulting. So what happened was that management consulting companies, they came in and helped a lot of organizations to adopt Scrum and other agile frameworks. We didn't have a lot of scaling going on at this time, so Scrum was sort of the only scaling mechanism that was widely used. There was some experimentation with other frameworks out there. Bachelor and Craig Larman with less, they made a difference. Dean Leffingwell started drawing up the sketches of SAFe and so on. But at the same time, we also saw the DevOps movement starting up together with software craftsmanship and so on. And they started including the operational side of things. So after we have developed stuff, instead of just throwing it over the wall, hey, let's collaborate with these people. Let's make sure that we're getting things into operations and learning from the operational environment. So in many organizations, development and testing and QA got closer together. In some organizations, it was just one single department now. But in other organizations, there was just a closer collaboration. And when the projects were going on, they were actually sprinting across development, test, QA, and operations. It was actually quite agile, what was going on in many places. And it was fast cycles, right? We were talking about cycles of 2 to 4 weeks in most companies, going all the way to operations. And a lot of good experiences came out of that. But the management consulting companies were lurking in the shadows, and with the big scaling frameworks, with SAFe as the largest one. We now had management consulting companies running agile transformations big time across a lot of big organizations. It started before 2015, but 2010, 2015, in that time span was where this thing really kicked off. And they installed agile coaches in the organizations to sort of drive the organizational change that was going on. Scrum was well known, and Scrum Masters were beginning to be seen as not really needed anymore. If you had Scrum Masters, it was a Scrum Master of multiple teams already, and then they started switching titles to agile coaches or RTEs in the SAFe world. And then what we saw was that larger and larger projects were sort of being treated the same as smaller projects. They were being sliced up to chunks, and each chunk would be like a quarter of a year, and then we run that chunk. But the big process around this was still quite waterfall-ish in most organizations. So the scaling frameworks, mainly SAFe, but also less Nexus, Scrum at Scale, and so on, they were adopted in a lot of different organizations. clearly with SAFe being the most popular one. And something happened with DevOps where it was supposed to be like part of the skill set that we had in a development team, but it started turning into a separate team. Unfortunately, it didn't go the way that it should have gone. But we got co-located teams. We got co-located teams mainly working from the office. We had big room planning, so it was a lot of getting people close together, and there was a lot of belief in the magic of having people in the same room that was driving sort of the changes here. And what it looked like was, well, let's bundle all parts of building, testing, and operating the software. Let's bundle that together. Maybe not in a separate, in a single organization, but they are all part of the game now. IT operations were included in Agile trains, in SAFe and so on. So we still had like the big annual budgeting and the big planning of projects and budgeting and all of that. And now we were running cycles, and I'm trying to indicate that these cycles were much slower than what we did before. Right, these cycles were 3-month cycles instead of 2 to 4 weeks. So it might have been that the development teams were using virtualized technologies, containers, and all of that stuff, and were technically capable of deploying stuff all the time if they wanted to. But the big processes were still on an annual level, and the big planning cycle was still on a quarterly level. So the cycles, they felt long and slow. This is my personal perspective on this. Your mileage may vary on this. And then we come to sort of the present era, starting with 2020, or more specifically February, March 2020, where COVID hit us like a hammer. All of a sudden, everybody were forced to work from home. And all the myths that we had about collaboration and agility, that it only works if we have people in the same room and all of that stuff, they were sort of shattered. We figured out in a matter of months that it's definitely possible and doable to be agile from home. It's possible to be productive, create value, create quality, and so on from home. And people were generally displeased with being at home to begin with, but most people ended up really enjoying the freedom to work from home when it mattered. And then the other thing, a big thing that happened in this period was that AI went from being some fantasy that a lot of people had around the world to being something that was actually real. And it was even becoming a commodity. Today, it is a commodity. You can find any AI to do anything that you want. You don't need to build your own thing. You can, of course, if you want to, but this is something that everybody has access to now. So this is a very different era than what we had before. So now how we're working now? Well, Scrum, in what I've seen at least, is sort of the norm for team ways of working. So on the team level, it's very much like Scrum. Is it like beautiful professional Scrum? Not necessarily, but small teams working in short iterations. They have daily Scrums or daily stand-ups. They have planning just a couple of weeks ahead. They have reviews and retrospectives and so on. That's pretty much the norm. But what I see is that the various big scaling frameworks, they are losing popularity. It's more and more of the big companies that did the big agile transformations, they are backing out of it. They're doing their own thing instead. And custom variants of Scrum and SAFe and so on is taking over from these rigid by the book installations of these frameworks. So my take on what it looks like is that we still have this close collaboration between these departments, but it's sort of a black box what's going on now, and it's not the same across all organizations. And even within the same organization, there can be different projects or different products being developed along different lines. So this is sort of my description of the history of until today. So what comes next? And all of this is speculation, but with more or less foundation in what might be real. So some things that we sort of know. The delivery frequency will go up. Right? It's possible with the technologies that we have and with the use of AI to build and deploy software at a much higher pace than what we have been doing so far. So that will happen. The question is, customers and users, can they actually keep up with this tempo? Will it be too disruptive at some point that the user interface is different now than it was before lunch? Will the customers and end users accept this ever increasing frequency of deliveries? We'll see. Another thing that I also am quite sure will happen is that when we have teams today that are not using AI, they need to have X number of people in order to be cross-functional as a team. But some of these skills can actually be dealt with by AI tools instead. And that will cause the teams to shrink, right? They don't need to be that large anymore. Henrik Nieberg wrote a blog post a couple of years ago talking about Agile in the age of AI. And he was also saying, well, teams, they're going to be small. And the question that I ask myself is, if you have a very small team, say 2 to 3 people with some strong AI tools, and they are delivering a new version of their software every 1 to 2 days or even multiple times per day, does it make sense to have Scrum? Right? Is it at all plannable work that's going on here? And is it too much overhead to have a process like Scrum or other strict processes? Does it really make sense when a team is that size? Do they need it, or is it just overhead? And then another thing that I'm also sure will happen is that all of these AI tools, they will force us to apply more quality assurance to our products. We are not there yet, and I think we will see some catastrophes in the near future where software built by AIs, but with obvious defects in them, will be deployed to the wild and cause all kinds of problems. Hopefully, it's not going to cost human lives, but it might cause embarrassment. It might cause data leaks. It might cause all kinds of issues. And one of the big issues is that the data that we use to train our AIs with are not of the utmost highest quality. In some situations, if you look at ChatGPT and Copilot and all of these, they're essentially trained on all publicly available code. And the quality level of that is garbage, right? So there's a lot of garbage in there. There's also a lot of good stuff. But if there is garbage in there, you will get garbage out of AI tools. That's just the way it is. And then there is the whole topic of hallucinations. And it's unavoidable with AI, with the technologies that we're using currently to build AIs to avoid hallucinations. So you must have human beings to verify and validate whatever is being produced. So again, think about a small team of 2 to 3 people who are enough people to sort of steer a set of AI tools to build some fancy new applications. Maybe you need one or more people added to the team just to do quality assurance of whatever is being built. So maybe we'll get more to a one-to-one relationship between developers and testers. Maybe that's even necessary. That's something. If we look at the roles, I also think they are going to evolve. The product owner role, I think they need to stop thinking in terms of features. Right? They need to think about something else. They need to think about what is it that we are trying to achieve with our products. So product goals and commercial goals should be sort of top of mind for product owners. And the list of features is less important. It's a secondary thing. Maybe it's not even the product owner coming up with these things. Maybe they're just setting, these are the goals they want to hit. And then we have some people inside the team or AIs that can help us figure out what is the set of features that will allow us to realize these goals. So what they should be doing is measure the adoption of the software and of functionality and so on. They should measure user behavior. They should measure the commercial performance of the product, and then use all of these measurements to steer. I think the evidence-based management mindset from Scrum.org makes a lot of sense in this kind of world, where we have this set of metrics and we're keeping an eye on them, and every time we are deploying new versions, we can sort of see the impact of what we have done to the product, to these things that we actually care a lot about. And it could be that the product backlog turns into simply a sequence of intermediate goals that are on the path to the overall product vision. That we have like the big goal at the sort of virtual end of the product backlog, and then we have a bunch of increasing intermediate goals that are sort of leading to that amazing future that we are envisioning for our product. So that could be what the product backlog turns into. And this is not disallowed in Scrum. You can definitely do it already today if you want to, but not a lot of people are doing that. If we look at the Scrum Master role or the Agile coach, it's important to state that being a meeting organizer was never your role. Right? It's not your role, and it has never been your role. Your responsibility is to make sure that the team is capable of delivering value. So whatever the team needs in order to be able to deliver value, it is your responsibility to help them get that. I think that if we have smaller development teams, we'll probably end up with having more development teams and having one product owner for a number of development teams. I could also imagine having like one Scrum Master in charge of supporting multiple teams. So it could be that you still have like the pair, product owner and Scrum Master, and they're sort of working together with a fixed set of teams. So all the teams that are working on a given product. But I don't see a Scrum Master in every team. I don't think that's going to be useful in the future. So what should they do, Scrum Masters? They should focus on the collaboration interfaces between the teams. How do we align, and how do we coordinate, and so on, and also the interfaces between the teams and the rest of the organization. How do we make sure that we talk to the right stakeholders in the organization? How do we make sure that what we are doing is making sense for the organization? So your job, as always, has been to remove or escalate organizational impediments. But your focus is probably not going to be collaboration inside the team, because if you just have like 2 or 3 people inside that team, they will figure out how to work together. Right? So your role is to make sure that they can actually deliver in whatever context they are. You need to enable that team to be able to deliver. More things that might change. I think that any kind of planning horizons that we are operating with will be shorter. On the team level, weekly plans or even shorter. Maybe we have a planning session Monday morning and Wednesday morning just to plan for the next couple of days. Or it could be just weekly plans. On the product level, if the product backlog turns into like a list of goals, maybe we can have some monthly goals or a kind of roadmap. But a roadmap should not be like a roadmap of features. It should be a roadmap of capabilities or numbers that we want to achieve from the metrics that we are measuring. Like a number of users, a number of transactions, or number of whatever kind of things that we are hoping to have happen in our application. On the portfolio level, so in an organization where you have multiple different products, maybe it's possible to set quarterly goals. It could be possible to set up some roadmaps on the quarterly level. What will happen on the company level, I have no good idea. My guess is for a long time still, they will stick to these annual budgets cycles that 99.999% of organizations are doing today. But it is not the only option to do so. Right? There is something called beyond budgeting that sets up a whole different mindset for how to run a business. And I hope that ideas like that become more mainstream. There are hundreds of companies using beyond budgeting, but hundreds of companies out of a million companies out there is just nothing. So I hope something will happen. Else on the team level, if you have just 2 or 3 people in the team, I think the interpersonal compatibility between these people becomes even more important. If you are a team of 7 to 9 people or something like that, it's okay that there are that guy and that person over there that I don't really get that well along with, because there are all the rest that I get fine along with. But if you have just 2 or 3 people, they will be in your face all the time. So making sure that you have good chemistry and compatibility between those people in the team, it will be more important than it is today. I think having 1 or 2 daily touch points makes sense inside even a small team. I think it makes sense to show off whatever you build, at least weekly with your stakeholders. You don't necessarily have to show off every single feature, but show off what is happening with the product overall. And then I don't think retrospectives might necessarily be a thing, but then there should be some focus on continuous improvement of the technologies and tools. And I think that will be natural. I think when working with AIs and similar kind of tools, it will be part of your ways of working to continuously tinker with these things and make them better and better. It could be also that you have retrospectives, but it will be for ways of working and like the big hairy retrospectives that you would normally run in a big team. I don't see them happening as much in the future, not with such small teams. Maybe we can do it across multiple teams. Maybe it could be something like the what's that called in SAFe? You know what I mean. The big event at the end of the PI. I'll remember in a moment.
You mean the PI planning?
No, not the PI planning, but
so the metrics review.
Inspect and adapt.
Inspect and adapt. Yeah, sure. Yes.
Like half a day for looking at things across the teams and so on. Maybe it could be something like that, but yeah, I don't know. I have just 2 slides left. So one challenge that I think will be a hard nut to crack is that not all organizations, and definitely not all parts of an organization, can speed up to those new frequencies that we're talking about here. Things like regulatory requirements, things like external reviews and legal validations of stuff and so on. These things are not in the control of the individual company or product organization inside a company. So how do we speed up when these processes are not in our control? How do we interface between the fast parts and the slow parts? I think that's going to be really tricky to deal with. Some parts of the organization are going to be, they're going to feel weighed down because of very slow processes happening elsewhere. But those slow processes cannot be changed in any simple way. That's something I think is a hard challenge. I work in a medical device industry, and this is definitely something we feel. And how the hell can we do it faster? I mean, regulations say that we can't. Right? So things are tricky there. And then the whole challenge of ending up having more teams, right? Having multiple teams has always been painful, but as teams are growing smaller, they will probably become more teams than we had before. So how do we ensure alignment on scope, design, architecture, technology, all of these things across the teams, especially when it's AIs that are generating most of the stuff from the teams? I mean, is it even possible to get these AI tools aligned on these dimensions? Is it possible to instruct them to do something that when they're producing something for that team over here, that it's compatible with whatever they're doing over here? That there is still some kind of standard, that is still some kind of recognizability across the teams. So those are some challenges that I think are tricky. I have no answers for them. And then there's this topic here about frameworks. I think that Scrum, Safe, Less, Nexus, all of these agile frameworks, they are becoming less and less relevant. I think what matters is the specific context in the specific organization. I think that doing something just because it says so in the book or in the framework, it doesn't make sense. It's wasteful. Why do we need to do it like that? Well, look at the big drawing. It says that you should have one of these in there, and you should do it in this particular way. Yeah, but that framework, it was not built for us, right? It was built as something that was generic and applicable everywhere. But it turns out it's no longer applicable everywhere, and it will be fewer and fewer places where they can just use these things from the shelf. So that probably also means that all of the generic training and certification that is out there from Scrum.org, Scrum Alliance, Kanban University, and whatever they are all called, I think it becomes less and less relevant. And maybe instead there will be like a growing need for building and evolving your own customized training for whatever you're using inside your organization, and it will evolve all the time, right? What is the truth now might be completely different just a couple of months down the road because technology changed or the target that we are aiming at changed. So what will remain? What will not change? I think a focus on flow. Things like reducing lead time, so how long it takes from we learn about a desire to we actually start acting on it. How long does it take to complete something? How long does it take to get something to the market or learn from the market or fix something that we broke? These things will probably keep being something that matters. I also think that a focus on efficiency, like the lean mindset, reducing waste, replacing meetings with dashboards and other kind of radiators, and reducing rework by increasing quality. I think these things will keep mattering for a long time. And then I think maybe a new line for the Agile Manifesto would be individualism and autonomy over harmonization. So I don't think it's going to be as necessary to harmonize across organizations or across teams how we do things. I think it's going to be more important that there's room for the individual and each team can decide for themselves how do we do these things, as long as we stay within whatever guardrails are necessary. So my last slide, which is sort of the pitch to discussion, the Agile Manifesto. Will it still be relevant? Right? We have the 4 value statements. We have the 12 principles. Is it still relevant? I have my opinion, but I'm really curious to hear your opinion about these. So I think some chatting happened along the way. I haven't read any of it now.
Thanks a lot, Mikkel. Maybe would it be okay for the conversation to take down the presentation?
Yeah, sure, we can do that.
And then, as the organizer, I get to ask the first question, and then we will let it go. So thanks a lot, Mikkel. Really, really interesting, really comprehensive. That's appreciated. So that was a very thorough walkthrough. I was wondering on my side, is there anything happening at the organization? I mean, the organizations we have today, are they still the organization to host agility, or might there even be a need to go back and look at the most foundational foundations on how we think about working with work?
So you're talking about like, do we still have like a finance department and sales and marketing and all of that?
There are people out there who question if we will have money in the future, so don't feel constrained.
Yeah. So during my career, over the past 30 years, I haven't really seen a big change in organizational structure, despite all of these things happening that I just described. Right? We still have like the executive committee at the top. We still have them making the decisions. We still have the annual budgeting cycles. We still have sales and marketing that defines what is it that we want to sell or what is it that the market wants, and then throwing it at the other part of the organization, whether it's R&D or development or whatever. I haven't seen anything change that in the past 30 years. I don't think anything can change it. Right? The people who are at the levels where they can make these decisions, they came to that level by doing things the way they've always done it. Right? So why should they change? They have no incentive.
Thank you. Let's go by let's go by the order.
Yes.
Roman. Also, sorry, I cannot actually see the count, but it looks like you are the first Roman, so let's just go with that.
I think Benis was before me, right?
I think I was, but
ladies first.
Then you go first. Sorry, you're second on my screen. Sorry for
worries. Mikkel, thank you so much for the presentation. I think I hinted at it in the chat that I think the core, maybe getting back to the core of the Agile Manifesto, was where we're heading. Because I think when we're saying that we're actually moving away from look at the slide, you're not doing things by the book. To me, that's actually always been a bit anti-agile, even though I've definitely met teams that have had a Scrum Master before where they've been hit over the head with the Scrum Guide, because it is about the people. And I think I agree with you that it's going to be a lot more context-based, like you're mentioning medical devices, pharma, energy sector, whatever that might be. And then I also think there's something about agile values such as respect. I actually think when we're not engaging with the teams and the products, having an understanding of what is the technology that you're using, what is the product actually trying to solve, I think that comes across as disrespectful to the team. And I get why some teams have been frustrated that you come in with your Scrum or your Safe or your Kanban or whatever it might be without actually stopping and listening to them. And I think that might also be why we're seeing some organizations really, agile is becoming a bit of a no bad word a lot of places. And I think that might actually be the reaction to it. That's my 2 cents.
I think you're right.
Okay, good. I have a lot of thoughts, but let's start with the most common thought that I had during your presentation. Thanks for the presentation, first of all. And for all that you might not know, Mikkel and I work in the same company currently still. So we have a lot of interaction anyhow. What was missing in your presentation, I think this is a key part that is also missing always when we talk about agility and the way forward and things like that, is where is the user? Where's the interaction with the user? Because when we look at the core of where agility comes from and where Agile manifesto and things like that come from, is because we're in complex systems that are unpredictable and we don't know what the right solution looks like. We have to put it out and see how the reaction of the market is to it and how the users interact with it and how they actually deal with it. Even if they say they want something, they might not want that because you build it exactly like they described it and things like that. And this is the core problem that we still haven't solved, and no AI tool will solve that for us. And I think this is really, really important in terms of what the future should look like, because we still have those gatekeepers. We still have sales and marketing with the interactions with the end users a lot of the times. We have people on the hotline talking with end users, and you can see different approaches, for example, in indie games where the developers make live streams while developing their software, people interacting with that, getting a real sense of, okay, my potential users, what do they want? How do they react with something that I'm currently building and things like that? And this is something that we cannot solve by being faster. So I think the core of it is not speeding up delivery, but speeding up and not value delivery, but value generation. And value generation, first and foremost, is knowledge generation, I think. So getting to know what works and what doesn't. And this is the core problem that still hasn't been solved. And Agile was trying to solve this with fast feedback cycles, but we let the important people always out of this feedback. So we always had those gatekeepers, and that will still remain if we don't change a fundamental way of approaching how software developers and actual users interact with one another. So as long as you have gatekeepers, you will not solve any problems by getting faster, because you then just throw out a lot of things that people don't actually want, which is quite it's expensive, and you have to spend a lot of marketing budget to shove that people's throat and things like that. You can see this as a user yourself. How many features are being built that you don't actually want, that you don't understand, that you don't even know existed, and things like that. How much AI is stuffed down our throats currently. Every tool that I open up has some AI stuff in it, even if I don't want it. And I have to find out how to disable it because I don't want it. And this is getting out of hand. And I think this is not in the sense of generating value anymore. It's about generating something faster, more. But this is not what Agile was trying to solve. And I think this is the core problem that still needs solving.
So I agree to a lot of what you're saying, but I don't fully agree with your conclusion. And the reason is, I totally agree that this was the problem that Agile tried to solve. Right? It was looking upstream and trying to get much better interaction with those that are upstream from us, getting a better understanding and making sure that we're actually building the right thing. Right? That was the problem they tried to solve. But it was a different time back then. Doing software was super expensive, and it was super time consuming to do it back then. So getting it right early and delivering value quickly and so on, that was the key concern. But into today and tomorrow's world, where we have AI tools that can enable us to build in a day what would take a full-size development team a month or longer to build, experimentation has become fast and it has become super cheap. So we still want to make sure that we are building the right thing, but we can run many, many more experiments at the same cost as what we could do before. And instead of asking people, what do you think about this? We can measure how do they behave when we do this. So take as an example, Amazon. I have some numbers and they are 12, 13 years old from Amazon. Back then, they were delivering new versions or new deployments to the Amazon.com website every 11.6 seconds, right? And they were measuring all the time, right, the exact behavior. And they had an update go wrong for them, right, a deployment where by accident a developer had moved the buy now, like the one-click buy button. It was moved down on the page so that you had to scroll in order to find it. They found that defect within an hour simply by monitoring the purchase pace that was going on. They could see that all of a sudden people are not buying stuff as fast as they did before. Hey, let's examine what's going on here. Oh, they can't see the button. Let's move the button back where it used to be deployed, right? So within an hour, they have found and fixed this defect. That was 12, 13 years ago, and they are far ahead of the curve, right? They can really experiment fast. This was before AI that they could do this just by brute force and lots of human beings and tons of automated tests. Today, they're much, much faster, right? They don't have to be nearly as slow as they were back then. Now they can really go fast. So this thing about ensuring that we deliver what end users want, we can get to that at a different path than asking them. And it's much more valuable for us to measure what they're doing than it is to ask them and then deliver whatever they said that they wanted, because it's not the same as it is what they need, right? We have the whole faster horse problem in there as well.
8 minutes, 7 minutes left. Let's just check. So when I can see you have your hands up, so you're first to go if nobody else want to go. Anyone else who has something they want to throw in?
Take over so much time. If anyone else wants? Just some thoughts on that, because for me personally, there's also an ethical side to that. At the end of the day, real purpose, and this is also where the intrinsic motivation plays a big role, where Agile also came from, is I want to build something that is valuable to the world and that is actually making the world better. And this tendency of just measuring everything but not interacting with humans anymore is getting into a world where we can all feel as users we're currently being spied on. All of our data is being shared across the world, and everyone is spying on us because no one actually talks with us. They all want to just measure us and draw as much money out of us as we want. So I think this is something where I have an ethical problem with that. Also, and as I said, look at what is happening in indie games. And I think the game sector is playing a big role in how the situation could evolve, because AAA studios that are currently trying to use those mechanisms with measuring and micro interactions and things like that to the brim, they start losing. And indie developers that are actually interacting with their community, actually building a community, interacting with people, asking them, not building what they said they want, but understanding what they want to achieve by interacting with them. They are winning now. And I think this can play a big role in how the future might shape.
I read some HR place where they suggested we should all wear sensors at work so that the robots could feel how we feel. So it's going to be beautiful. Bye.
First of all, thank you so much, Mikkel. It's really a pleasure to listen to you also with all your aspirations and thoughts about where Agile will go. I really and sincerely love it. And you gave me some fruits of thoughts. I was thinking, Morten and I are discussing this now and then. What will happen to, now I would like to call it to big room gatherings. Maybe we don't need the big room plannings, and I think you shed some light upon that. But have you given a little more maybe thoughts about that? You did say something about it, but if you could elaborate.
I mean, in Denmark, there hasn't been a very strong reaction to companies asking employees to come back to work after COVID. Most people have done it, right? And most organizations are now asking people to come back because they're paying rent for the offices and so on. And we'll probably end up in a situation where it's somewhere in between. We're all staying at home and we are all there all the time, right? It was going to be some kind of balance. I don't think we have found the balance yet. But I do think that most people have realized that big room gatherings is not the only way to do things, right? It's not the only way that can be valuable, and it is costly to do the big room things, right? You need to have the facilities in order and so on. So there are some downsides. I also do think that a lot of people enjoy these big room events. So I would hope that what it ends up with in as many organizations as possible is that you plan these big room events, but allow people to participate either in person or remotely. Right? So those that get joy and pleasure and energy out of being in the same room with a lot of people, they can do that, and those that prefer the coziness of their own room and their own bookshelf behind them and so on, they can do that. Our technologies for making this happen are not really good, and they haven't been evolving too much over the past decade or so. So the hybrid setup is not very pleasurable for anybody at the moment. I hope that technology will move so that it becomes better. Personally, I try to avoid hybrid setups at all costs. So yeah, the experience is not good enough as it is, as I see it.
Yeah, I agree.
But I do think that the like big room planning from SAFE, where we are getting together all the teams and planning 3 months ahead, we're going to see the end of that. Doing 3 months planning doesn't make sense anymore because things are moving too fast. We can't predict what will be needed 3 months from now. So making a plan for it doesn't make sense. But getting people into a room and building relationships and so on might make sense. But maybe it makes more sense to do it on a team level because those are the ones that you need to have that relationship with.
Yeah, and then we need to solve all the dependency stuff, and probably AI agents will take care of that. So don't think about it. But lots of food for thoughts. Thank you.
We are at the top of the hour. Mikkel, thank you so much. Is there anything we can do for you?
No, I'm fine. I'm just curious as to where we're going. I mean, I did ask a question that nobody sort of answered, but I'll give my own answer then. The Agile Manifesto, is it still relevant? And as I was making these slides, I was considering every single element in there, and I don't think any of them are irrelevant. I think they're just as relevant now as they used to be. Yeah. But the sort of misconception that the only way to be agile is to install some kind of agile framework, that one is gone. But the values, the principles in there, they are just as relevant today, and they could even be tightened even more.
Yeah,
that's a wonderful way
I fully agree. Yeah,
Mikkel, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining, and I hope to see you all around.
See you. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.